now we have the incompetent Hollywood people telling us what we should be doing. In this case, it's Sophie Turner saying white silence is violence. So now saying nothing is violence when before it was talking was a microtransgression and that was equivalent to violence. So now not saying anything is violence. This is getting stupid to the point of absurd. I don't know where these people are getting these ideas. I don't think they've ever spent any time reading anything related to the law or philosophy or anything in post-secondary education to come to these sorts of slogans that we should ever listen to or take seriously. First off, to say that there's a race, and a race whose silence is somehow violent is, I don't know what that means. But let's say there was no race. Let's say silence is violence. What the heck does that even mean? Not saying anything is violent? Now, if there was an ongoing problem of, I don't know, domestic abuse amongst women, so a lot of married women were getting hurt by their husbands and no one's saying anything about that, would it keep going on? Perhaps. At best, you might get stronger laws or stronger punishments against spousal abuse. Sure. And if that's all it is, then great. We already know there's a problem with people getting shot and killed because they're committing crimes, but it's not the fault of the police. It's not the fault of entire precincts or entire states. That's silly. Police are a reactive force. They're not a present force. They're not doing things before crimes occur. They're not shooting you on sight before you pull out a gun or steal something. It's always after the fact they arrive. So this idea that somehow the police are doing something wrong or being quiet about it, a certain race is doing something wrong, is insane. So Turner has been chronicling her protest via Instagram, where she shared 2 photos and a video. In the first photo, you can see the protesters are lying face down on the ground with many of them with their hands placed behind their backs. I don't know what this represents. Is that to represent someone being stopped by police and the police are telling them to get on the ground and put your hands behind your back? Is that it? We stand, we kneel, we lay down for you. This achieves nothing. All you're doing is making yourself feel better by being part of a community and saying, look, there's a problem. We're putting on a demonstration in a park. I don't even know where this is. There's our beautiful sign. It sounds as if the sign was just silence is violence. And then she thought, hey, you know what'd be really great? Let's blame an entire race because they need to talk about something. Fine. Write to your counselors, write to your congressman, write to whomever you think you should about what you think should happen. I don't know. What do you think should happen? Stronger laws? Stricter rules on becoming a police officer? Sure, I'm all for that. Great, go for it. But blaming an entire race for not acting or saying anything is ridiculous. All it takes is one letter. You want to make a petition? Great, that's another thing you could do. Talk to lawyers, sure, talk to whoever you like. Why are you telling it's our fault? What do we have to do with it? Do we have to be cognizant of every single social issue that happens? How does that work? How does the blame lie on law-abiding citizens of any race? What about black silence? Black silence is violence. What about Mexican silence? Like, how far do you go? You just blame the planet for your first world problems in your certain community? No justice, no peace. Yeah, that's generally what you want from justice. You want things to make sense. You want to have a clear conscience. You want to make sure the law is fair. The law, to my knowledge, is fair. Maybe the punishment is not fair. Maybe they should be fiercer. But it seems more to do with individual people screwing up on the job than it has anything to do with justice or races being quiet. As reported by Fox News, Turner would also respond to a person in the comments who questioned, they have been arrested and charged with murder, so there's justice. So can we please have peace now? And then Sophie says, this is about Breonna Taylor. This is about Trayvon Martin. This is about Eric Gardner. This is about the systemic racism that black people have faced for hundreds and hundreds of years. There has been systemic racism for hundreds and hundreds of years under the U.S. since the inception of the country? I know back then race relations were a little different. But what do you mean by systemic racism? What systems in place since 200 years ago has this occurred? This is about changing the system. Which system? What are you talking about? You can't just change people's minds if we're going as far as individuals. Since I don't know what system you're referring to, so I'm assuming it's people in general. Which system? How we look at people? Because everyone, even blacks, are going to look at people differently just because they're individuals and they see things differently than everyone else. Just because I have a racist thought in my head doesn't mean I'm a horrible, horrible person. See, hey, that's a black man. That's a racist thought. Oh dear. Justice will be done when society reflects our beliefs that we are all equal. That means nothing, and that means nothing. How does a society reflect our belief? That implies that we can shape society to our will. And everyone who has an individual input can suddenly do that, which doesn't make any sense unless we're talking about something concrete, like a piece of art or a wall or a road or a bridge or something like that. The best we got is democracy. We all vote on something, which is not the best solution, but it's the solution for everyone. Or the majority, at least. That we are all equal. Until then, there should be no peace. What aspect of the law shows us that we are not equal? Give us a law that is unfair, and I will guarantee there's going to be a judge who's going to have dozens of opinions on that one tort or law or rule in any jurisdiction, whether it's municipal or federal. Joe Jonas would also share photos and videos from the protest, yada yada. There she is, holding her sign. Black Lives Matter, yay. My heart is heavy. I stand in solidarity with those speaking out against racism and fighting for justice and equality. Silence is not an option. You know what? Go become a lawyer. If you're this enthusiastic, go understand the law and see where you're arguing from. What point can you make? What has to change? Show us a rule or law or procedure or practice or system that needs to change. I'm sure there's all sorts of things that need to change. Which one? Just tell us what is fair, what is justice to you. While my voice is not one that needs to be heard, then why do you want everyone else to talk? What the hell are you talking about? I want to highlight some of those we should listen to. She goes on to list a number of people, including Colin Kaepernick, okay, Tamika D. Mallory, and Emma DeBerry. Black Lives wants to disrupt the Western prescribed nuclear family structure requirement by supporting each other as extended families and villages that collectively care for one another. Oh, gee, what does that sound like? Starts with an S. Especially our children. What's wrong with having a family unit? What's wrong with having a mother and a father, or a mother and father figure? When we look at why blacks are committing so many robberies and violent crimes, is it maybe because the breakdown of the family unit, the same thing you guys want to remove? Can you see why some of us don't agree with this philosophy? That the breakdown of family values and units are causing all of this crime. Police aren't causing the crime. That doesn't make any sense. They are a reactive force. When someone reports a crime, they come in. They don't just shoot at people willy-nilly. They don't just accuse people willy-nilly. They don't put people under arrest without a reason, or they will get charged. They have to be very careful. to the degree that mothers, parents, and children are comfortable. What does that mean? To me, that sounds like they want money. They want not family units, they want mothers and their children to be given money by the state. Because they don't like whatever the prescribed nuclear family structure is, apparently. And if they want to be part of some collective household or group, nothing's stopping them. There is no rule in the book saying you can't do that. So what exactly is the problem, aside from they just want money from the state? They also want to dismantle cisgender privilege. Here we go. Now we're getting into sexual identity for whatever stupid reason. We were doing just fine with enough problems of saying white silence is racism or whatever, violence. But now we are self-reflexive and do the work required to dismantle cisgender privilege. Again, this is nonsense. And uplift black trans folks. How did we go from the black people to black? What percentage of people are trans that are suffering as a result of the Western prescribed nuclear family structure hurting them? What are you talking about? Can't you just have one clear problem? But now you're just amalgamating all these other issues, like a bucket list of things that somehow have to fit together. Especially black trans women? What does that even mean? Are those people in drag? Are those people who are confused? What is this? Do you need mental therapy? Like, what do you want? Who continue to be disproportionately impacted by trans antagonistic violence. Okay, I mean, I have no idea. Is there a huge problem of black trans women being the targets of violence? I haven't seen these stats. This should be a known thing. I've never heard of that. The group has also made defunding the police one of their top priorities, which is another insane, like these are just insane ideas, insane accusations, values without stats. I don't know where they're getting this stuff. Many white people tried to overshout Black Lives Matter's organizers last night as we created space for black joy. What the hell is black joy? A punk band? What? And while we held DC police accountable by uplifting the names of the black people they have killed here, let's be clear, our demand is to defund the police in the DC by any means necessary. And then what? So you decrease the amount of police, which increases the amount of crimes, or crimes that have been unaccounted for, because they can't respond to everything. How is that going to make your streets safer? What are you talking about? They are a reactionary force. They react to crime. They don't sit in a building and wait for crime to come to them. At best, they patrol. Sometimes they get tips. Sometimes they chase people. They are reactionary. After something has happened, they get called in. Maybe the problem isn't the police. Maybe it's the black communities with these broken families, Western prescribed nuclear family structure, whatever you prescribe that as. Overfunding the police, really? Okay, again, that's a budgetary concern. That's not necessarily a material or a functionary concern, meaning, maybe the police should be doing this, maybe they need more of that, maybe they need less of that. This is a budgetary concern, meaning they don't want money to go to the police as much, and apparently they want it to go to their villages, whatever those are. That's an argument you could have with your counselor. Standing around and holding up signs isn't going to change things. You're not going. That's not, especially in the way they're doing it. Telling people that white silence is violence or some other slogan is not helping. What you should be doing is going around canvassing for votes, talking to people, emailing people, calling people, saying, hey, we think X. What do you think? You should never be badgering or demonizing people for being quiet. because I have no idea what you're talking about. And it sounds as if this is purely a municipal issue in your city that you have to talk to your councilors about. Overfunding the police leads to mass incarceration. No, it doesn't. And a lack of resources for the things that matter. Okay, now we're talking about distribution of money or public funds. And there is an argument to be had for that. But you have to know what the hell you're talking about. You can't just say defund the police. Housing, education, and healthcare. When we redirect funding, lives improve. Or lives get worse. Because there's no justice if there's no police to catch the crimes, to accuse people of wrongdoing, like violent murder or robbery. Quite sure if you ever got stolen from or had a loved one killed and there were no police involved, you'd be crying for the law. You'd be crying for more police. You'd be crying for anyone to help you. Removing the police is not going to solve things. It's going to make things worse. Apparently there's a change.org competition for the Hands Up Act. I'm not sure what that is. Would punish police for shooting unarmed citizens. Okay, interesting. Prohibits police officers from shooting unarmed citizens. I propose that the officer should receive a mandatory 15-year prison sentence. Okay. Now we're getting into a very gray area. We give police our rights. We resign our rights and give them to the police so that they can protect us. We do not have the authority to go up against and harm a police officer. They have the authority to do it to us, however, when certain conditions are met. When we're not listening or responding to their requests. I think every city is like this. Every modern police force, as far as I can tell. If there isn't a weapon found after someone has been shot, therefore unarmed by a police officer, then I propose that the officer should receive a mandatory 15-year prison sentence. I don't know. That is an argument to be had. I'm not an expert at these things, but that sounds a little ridiculous. Talking with Skynet News, she says, I signed it too. I have yet to tell my agents I signed it. They're going to be like, what? You can't work in these states? Yeah, I can't work in these states. This is getting silly. I'm glad she's saying what she believes. I'm glad she's signing petitions and talking and getting out there and saying things. The problem is the message is disgusting. It is ineffective, and you're going to be hurting your relationship with the general populace for saying nonsense like this. This is not how you win people over. Make your case. If you want to be a political activist, go for it. Run some advertisements. Talk to people in blogs. You really have to do these things because you have a mounting amount of evidence against you. As I've seen many times before, I've shown this on this channel, all the stats related to the police causing death to individuals. To me, it's never been an issue of race. Death is death. Circumstances are very particular. They're situational, and I can't account for hundreds and thousands of all these people have been shot. But if the argument is race, you've already lost. The stats do not back up your claim. 52%. Compared to 32%, white and black. I go by the stats again. This is from last week. This is the same data that Washington Post uses. And again, here's the column for race. It's completely random, at least by the week. There's no way to get proper information aside from tabulating all the sums. So unknown, 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 Hispanic, black, unknown, white. Hispanic, white, white, black, unknown, unknown, white, Hispanic, black, unknown, white. That was for the past week and a bit. Seems like a lot of white people and a lot of unknowns. You got 1, 2, 3 black. You got 1, 2, 3 Hispanic. Again, this is just a snapshot. There's all sorts of data, but as we've seen before, it's more whites than blacks. Not because the police hate whites, it's because there's more white people in North America, or rather in the States, where these polls are taken. So sorry if I don't believe that white silence is violence, that we should be giving money to communities that don't have a proper family unit. There are probably better ways to spend your money. And there's definitely better ways to help the society you're in. Stricter standards, higher standards for becoming a police officer. These are all simple, arguable ideas. But trying to demonize your opponents, or people you disagree with, or people who are simply not saying and thinking the same way as you, is the wrong way to go about it. Thanks for listening, guys, and have yourself a great day.